Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. My name is Callum, and for most of my life, I believed trust was something simple. Something you gave freely to the person you loved. I never expected that the person who would test that trust the most was the one I thought I'd grow old with, Marley. She had that warm, chaotic energy that pulled people in. You couldn't really stay mad at her. She had this way of smiling that made you feel like she was letting you in on some sweet secret. And for a long time, that smile felt like home to me. We'd been together nearly 4 years when everything shifted, though at the time, it seemed like the smallest thing. Marley told me her friends were planning a weekend trip, just a quick getaway to the coast. I didn't think much of it. She traveled with them often, and I trusted her. But 2 nights before the trip, she mentioned, almost casually, that her ex, Rowan, would be joining them. It wasn't the ex part that bothered me. It was how she said his name. Not flirty, not emotional, just careful. Like she was picking it up gently and hoping I wouldn't notice. I tried to shrug it off, but she saw the tension anyway. Cal, she said lightly, placing her palm against my chest. It's not a big deal. We're all adults. You trust me, right? I did. Or at least I wanted to. So I nodded and said, yeah, of course. But in the days leading up to the trip, a quiet ache settled in my stomach. I couldn't explain it. I wasn't jealous, not exactly. It was more like I could feel something shifting under my feet, and I didn't know yet whether it was the ground moving or her. When the day came, I helped her load her bags into her friend Aria's car. Marley kissed me goodbye. Quick, soft, familiar. But there was something a little too bright in her eyes. Excitement, nervousness, whatever it was, it lingered with me after she pulled away. For the first few hours, everything was normal. Couple of texts, a few pictures of the coastline. Then, just after sunset, she sent me one simple message. Hey, just a heads up, Rowan's here. Relax. Not don't worry, or I'm okay, or I love you. Just relax. I stared at the screen for a long moment, feeling my heartbeat slide into something colder. The word wasn't reassuring. It was dismissive, almost condescending, like I was unreasonable for even thinking anything at all. So I typed back, if you need to tell me to relax, maybe you shouldn't be doing what makes me tense in the first place. I didn't expect a fight. I didn't expect anything, really, but I certainly didn't expect silence, not for the next 12 hours. No good night, no check-in, no nothing. By the time morning came, I had convinced myself I was overthinking. She was probably just tired. She'd probably slept early. She'd message me when she woke up. Except she didn't. Not until early afternoon when my phone buzzed and her name flashed across the screen. But it wasn't a gentle apology or an explanation. It was a call. When I answered, all I heard was her voice. Sharp, furious, almost shaking. What was that text last night? She demanded. Why would you say something like that? Why are you trying to start drama when I'm just trying to enjoy a trip with my friends? I blinked, stunned. Marley, you're the one who told me to relax because you were being weird about Rowan, she snapped. You always get like this, always assuming the worst. That wasn't true, and she knew it. I had never once accused her of cheating, never once controlled her. I had never even asked about Rowan before this trip. But somehow, she made it sound like I was the problem, like my feelings were the inconvenience. Still, I stayed calm. That was always my role. Marley, I didn't accuse you of anything. I just didn't like how you said it. Well then maybe you should grow up, she fired back. Because I'm not going to babysit your insecurities every time I go somewhere. The call ended abruptly. No apology. No attempt to understand. Just anger. And that became the pattern. For the next 3 days, she called me every single day, often more than once, each time furious about something new. My tone, my texts, my lack of texts, her interpretation of my silence, her assumption of my disappointment. It felt like she was picking fights so she wouldn't have to answer the questions she knew I wasn't asking. By the time she came home, something in me was already shifting. Not anger, not jealousy, just clarity. When Marley finally walked through the door on Sunday night, she looked like someone who'd been living in two different worlds. One where she was carefree and adored, and another where she needed to be angry at me just to keep something else hidden. She tossed her bag into the hallway, brushed past me, and headed straight to the kitchen without a hello. I watched her pull a bottle of water from the fridge. She didn't look at me, not once. "Trip go okay?" I asked quietly. She took a sip, shrugged, and said, "It was fine. You made it more stressful than it needed to be." There it was again, that strange, unearned irritation. Like she needed me to be the villain so she wouldn't have to look at herself too closely. I didn't respond. I just nodded and stepped aside as she walked past me to our bedroom. For the first time in years, I didn't follow her. I didn't try to soothe her mood. I didn't try to fix anything. I let the silence sit between us. The next morning, she acted normal. Too normal. Cheerful, even. She made coffee, hummed a little song, asked about my plans for the day. Like the last 3 days of rage-filled phone calls had never happened. It was confusing, but mostly it was exhausting. Over the next week, things became strange. Some mornings she was affectionate, clinging to my arm like she couldn't stand being away from me. Other days, she picked fights over nothing. A dish not rinsed right, a text she thought I sent too slowly, a sigh she misread as criticism. She had never been like this before the trip. It was as if she came home trying to outrun something. I didn't know what, but I could feel the shape of it in the way she avoided my eyes, in the way she overdefended every tiny disagreement, in the way she needed me to be the problem. It was easier for her that way. One night, almost 2 weeks after the trip, we sat on the couch watching a movie. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, her legs curled beneath her. It was quiet, peaceful. For a moment, it felt like us again. Then her phone buzzed. She lifted her head, glanced at the screen, and turned it face down so fast she almost dropped it. A subtle, simple motion, but enough. I didn't say a word. I didn't ask. I didn't even look at her. And maybe that's what unnerved her most. My silence. "Why are you being weird?" she asked suddenly. "I'm not," I said. "You are. You're distant." "Why? Because I went on a trip? Because my ex was there? I told you it meant nothing." I kept my voice steady. "Marley, you're the one who's been angry at me since before you even left." She opened and closed her mouth, searching for the right defense, the right accusation, the right justification. But none of them landed. She wasn't angry now. She wasn't loud. She just looked scared. "What do you think happened on that trip?" she whispered. "Nothing," I answered honestly. But something changed. That was the moment she broke. She didn't cry. Marley wasn't a crier. But she folded into herself, shoulders tightening, breath shaking just slightly. "I didn't do anything," she said, voice softening for the first time in weeks. "But I remembered things. How Rowan used to make me feel. How uncomplicated everything was. I guess I got caught up in nostalgia. That's all. It wasn't a confession of cheating. It wasn't even cruel. It was just honest in a way she hadn't been since the trip. And it hurt more than anything else she could have said." "Why didn't you tell me that?" I asked. "Because I didn't like the way it made me feel," she admitted. "And I didn't want you to think I didn't love you." That was the moment I understood. She didn't cheat. She didn't betray me physically. But emotionally, she had stepped outside our relationship, even if she didn't mean to. And the guilt, quiet, sharp, persistent, had been eating at her, turning into anger every time she looked at me. I reached for her hand, not to comfort her, but because I needed to feel the truth of the moment. "Marley," I said softly, "I'm not angry, but things can't go back to how they were. Not unless you're honest. Not unless you choose to be here, not just physically, but all the way." She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in weeks. "I want to be here," she whispered. "I do." Maybe she meant it. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she was still tangled in feelings she didn't fully understand. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I wasn't going to chase reassurance anymore. I wasn't going to argue with her guilt. I wasn't going to fix emotions that weren't mine. She would choose us or she would drift away. So I stood, kissed her forehead gently, and said, "Then show me." And for the first time since that trip, the silence between us didn't feel like distance. It felt like truth, quiet, steady, and waiting.